An alarm? What for? Christmas Oh. I guess it is that time of year again. That took so long. My fingers started to hurt. And the tree looks great. It's just those rinky-dink Christmas lights are not gonna cut it. They're not even the right color, and they're certainly not bright enough. Because for me, nothing is more Christmassy than being literally blinded by bright lights. Like looking into the true image of God and being turned immediately into a pillar of salt. I want my Christmas tree to be built like a flashbang, where even being in the same room as it is uncomfortable. And I know I'm not alone on this one. Right, guys? I'm not crazy, am I right? You guys agree with me, don't you? You guys agree.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer.
Like seriously, look at these things. And yellow? In my Christmas lights? What even is that? This can be fixed through the use of a fully customizable, individually addressable gamer lights, otherwise known as RGBs, as well as some ultra high brightness LEDs, to give the tree that real face of death brightness I'm looking for. But you may be asking, why bother with two different varieties, and are they even any different to begin with? Well, yes, obviously they're different, but let me quickly explain. It's a touch cramped at the moment. 1 second. Let me just... Oh, much better. The main difference between an LED and an RGB is in its makeup. An LED, or a light emitting diode, is made up of a single light doodad, which is usually set to a white color, whereas an RGB is made up of 3 light doodads, not white, but red, green, and blue. Now both of these lights have brightness control, but in the case for RGB, the brightness control is for each individual light doodad, which allows it to, using fundamental color theory, make any color by controlling the brightness of each individual pixel. If you completely dim the blue and you're left with nothing but green and red, that gives you yellow. So the RGB can be any color, including white. So what's the point of an LED? Well, 1 versus 3. Doesn't take a math degree to figure out that it'd be cheaper to make an LED than an RGB. And also some people claim that the pure white of the LED gives a whiter light than the white of the RGB, but now you're just getting into color sommelier territory, and I just don't care. So the TLDR, 1 light doodad, 3 light doodads. Can do any color, can only do 1 color. Cheap to make? Less cheap to make? I don't know how to manufacture RGBs. Anyway, that about does it. Because the RGBs take a little more computing power to run than the LEDs, that being just a little bit and none at all, respectively, I need a computer to drive the RGBs. This one, to be exact. What this little bad boy is an Arduino. Basically a knockoff brand Arduino. Which basically just means it's functionally and technically indistinguishable from a regular Arduino, except it costs a quarter as much. The Arduino is a relatively powerful little thing, especially when paired with this thing, a breadboard, which is a solderless circuit board, which basically just means you can shove the connectors of the electrical components you're using into the holes and power and control it from the Arduino. No soldering iron, no solder necessary. And using a starter kit that a lot of these boards come bundled with, you can make something very simple like this flashing light, with the most complicated part of this being the connected computer software where you program the instructions for the Arduino to follow. You can also make something a touch more complicated. I, for one, was able to scrounge together enough parts from the starter kit to make this motor control circuit. In any situation, it makes for the perfect gift for both the small and large creators you may know, and can act as a perfect introduction to the hobby, making it fun for the whole family. Well, I'm going to use it to transfer code on the computer into information the RGBs can actually utilize. But in order for that to happen, I have to hook it all up into a circuit. Now onto the hard part. The first test went perfectly, with me only needing to solder a power connector to the pre-existing wires, and then stuff those wires into the requisite slots on the Arduino. And it just worked.
It just works.
Getting my hopes up and giving me that sweet, sweet release of brain chemicals that would carry me through what I was about to experience. Now, the first thing you should know is that these RGBs, dubbed Neopixels, suck back a lot of power. And because of this, powering a very long strip like the one I have would require a power supply with a very high amperage, 8 to 10 to be exact, which I could not get. So the only other option left was to cut the large strips into different smaller strips and power each of them individually, whilst also connecting them all together so that I could control them all at once. The term to describe this is splicing. Now, splicing is especially difficult on RGB strips because the contacts on the strips, the actual part where the power and data are connected, are incredibly small and incredibly close together. Even with the magnifying glass, it's difficult to see what's going on. And even worse than that, I suck at soldering. So a double whammy like this created a situation where absolutely nothing worked on the first try, which required a subsequent hour of troubleshooting, only for things to just start working out of nowhere for seemingly no reason. Not that I was complaining, however. Oh, and also on the third and final strip, I made a bit of a boo-boo when I wired the strip in the wrong direction. Oh yeah, that's also a thing. The data line has a specific direction it has to go in. So if you're splicing several runs like I am, this direction must be maintained, which I didn't do. So I had to unsolder, flip the strip, and then resolder everything, which I thankfully ran into no major hiccups during. Done. Now that this is done, I have to move on to the part where I code the actual program. Well, program's a bit of a strong word to use, but it is still coding. and there it goes. You know, it really is as easy as it looks. And now that the programming is done, I can finally put it into the tree. Just means I have to get all of this past all of that. I really should have done this when the tree wasn't built yet, but you live and learn. With everything done, I can officially test it. The RGBs give a great and clear colour that is bright enough to even see with the lights on. But where this truly shines is in the dark. Because it is fully programmable, any pattern is just a Control-C, Control-V away. Whether it's something simple, or maybe you want something a little more prideful this Christmas, which had the crazy effect of casting this light show on my wall. You can even simulate the horrific tragedy of your Christmas tree burning down in the middle of the night. But personally, I prefer the simplicity of just some light red and white breathing. Much better. It's about ready for the big day. But I'm not exactly dressed for the Christmas experience. Now you might be expecting me to put on a big, colourful, ugly sweater, but if it wasn't already obvious, I live in Australia, which means it's currently summer, aka hot as hell. So we do things a little differently down here. Yeah, that's about as good as it gets. Even though these holiday times have been weird over the past few years, it's always important to remember to take some time to enjoy yourself, even if you have to do it alone. Maybe you bought yourself something for a hobby of yours. Or maybe... What's this? From Santa. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. That's strange. And that about wraps up this holiday time for me. But there is one test left to run. As you may have noticed, I haven't talked about the LEDs much, but they are in there. It's time for this Christmas tree to get truly unbearable. Oh, and a Happy New Year. Oh, so bright. My eyes.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of